everybody for joining us for another diabolical panel with the cast of the Amazon original series, The Boys. I'm your moderator, Aisha Tyler, and I cannot wait to dig into all the details about the upcoming season. We're going to show you a never-before-seen insane clip and share a few surprises. But first, a reminder, season 2 of The Boys debuts September 4th on Amazon Prime Video, so ready your tiny, puny human bodies. And now I am joined by executive producer and showrunner Eric Kripke, Billy Butcher himself, Mr. Karl Urban, the Huey Campbell, Jack Quaid, Mr. Homelander, Antony Starr, Starlight, aka Annie January, the lovely Erin Moriarty. Get out of the way, the A train is coming into the station, Jessie T, Usher. He's sweet and also very large. Mother's milk, Laz Alonso. He's the deep and he's always a little damp. Chace Crawford. The female, aka Kamiko, Karen Fukuhara. Mais oui, mon ami, c'est Frenchie, it's Tomer Capon. And a brand new addition to the 7. Please welcome Stormfront, Aya Cash. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. I got to do this with you last year at Comic-Con, and I'm stoked to be back for this conversation. And I want to kick things off right at the top here with Eric. Here we are. It's a year later. We've come full circle. Tell me what the fan reaction has been to The Boys since it's come out.
Fan reaction's been incredible. I mean, it's like exceeded all of our expectations. I mean, without, blowing smoke up all of our poopers, like we're a hit. But I think people are really responding to just the superhero bit of turning it on its head, I think. But even more than that, I think people are really responding to the characters, and I think they're falling in love with them, which is due almost entirely to this amazing cast. And they're also reacting to like the satire and the social commentary, which we worked hard to layer in. So it's very, very gratifying that I think they're getting all the things we set out to put into the show. And, we're all so proud of it. So thanks to everyone at home watching. We really appreciate it.
So when we pick up season 2, where are the boys and what's going on with the 7? Where do we find everybody?
When we pick up season 2, it's a lot more intense. Like we worked hard to make season 2 crazier but also more emotional and higher stakes. So everyone's like in a really tight spot. The boys are wanted fugitives coming off of last season. They're hunted. They're basically totally screwed, and they're doing their best to fight back at Vought however they can. But, season 1 was a big loss for them. Conversely, Homelander killed really the only person who could control him in Stillwell. And so he's increasingly out of control. He's ascendant. He's making Vought a scarier place, and Starlight is sort of trapped in this living nightmare. And so, I think everyone is pushed to the limits in season 2.
Well, I really would love you to expand a little bit on maybe the themes that you touched on in season 1 that you were able to expand on or bring into season 2, because I think what's great about the show is it's not just a great ride. There's these really big ideas embedded in the material.
We try to make this not just like the most realistic superhero show ever made, but we try to make it kind of a commentary on the up-to-the-minute world we're living in, because it's just this strange blur of politics and celebrity and media and social media manipulation. And it says so much about the world that we're in that we really try to, get some pretty sharp commentary in. And so for instance, in season 1, we really explored the Me Too, phenomenon with what happened with Starlight. We really talked about the American weapons industry, a lot of like politics, and So, and we explored all of that. I think in season 2, I would say it's, we continue that and probably make it even more edgy. Because I can say we're going after white supremacy in season 2. We're going after white nationalism in season 2. We're going after systemic racism in season 2. And all of those things really effing suck. The 3 triangles of the show are always strong characters first, madness second, which we have, and then if we can sneak in some revelations or discussions about the real world, then we do that too, and you'll see that in season 2.
I'm very excited to see all of you, but what I'm also very excited about is how people are going to react to the scene that we're about to roll in. It may be the most epic scene on The Boys since Robin's bloody and explosive demise. So let's take a look at a clip from season 2, and hold on to yourselves.
Frenchie, stand up! Go, go, go! Go, go, go! There! Head for the storm drain!
No super large mammals were hurt in the making of this scene.
Thank God.
Karl, I'm going to go to you. What was it like filming that scene? And is that the weirdest thing that you've ever done in your career?
I think hands down that's probably the weirdest thing that a lot of us had ever done in our careers. The scene was, I think for everybody but Jack, really a lot of fun to shoot. Jack was sitting in the front of the boat, and as you actually saw in that footage, we were actually getting quite a bit of air off some of the waves, and
and Karl was
not a
actually
great place to be. Yes, and that's actually one of the things that I really was surprised and thrilled about. The way that we shot that was, you had all of us actors in the boat, and we were actually doing it. We had a helicopter that was hovering, 80 to 100 feet in the air, flying along parallel with us and flying around us. And it's just, you never get to really experience that. We didn't, doing something for real anymore. It's usually like all done on a green screen, but we were actually out there in the water, doing horrendous speeds and having fun. Well, except for Jack, who wasn't really having fun.
Well, Karl, you were having the most
speed.
fun. Yes.
Yeah.
I was so surprised because when we were actually doing it, I thought a stuntman was going to be driving it. And then it was you, and we were going at enormous speeds, and I was getting seasick in the back after about hour 3 of shooting.
Yeah, it's crazy. What showrunner would ever let their cast get into such an impossibly stupidly dangerous situation?
Aaron just cares about that authenticity, man. He's just trying to make sure it's real.
Yeah.
Look, I'm trying to get the truth, and the truth, isn't free, man. What can I tell you?
And then did you guys build a big practical whale filled with garbage and gooey stuff and whatever people were throwing out of their trailers that day? Like, was that a big practical piece?
Yeah, they literally built a huge prosthetic whale, and it was on the beach, and it was very practical. You could, we actually end up inside the whale without giving too much away. and it was a pretty surreal experience, and pretty hot and stinky in the in the Canadian summer. It was great.
Oh, good times. The glamour of
Yeah,
Hollywood.
I want to add to that one of the best professional moments of my career was when I told the production crew, they're like, "We're not really building this whale, right?" And Arv Graywall, the production designer, and I said, "Yeah, we're building a whale, and it's going to be 40 feet long and 11 feet high." And started long before we started shooting episode 1. We were deep into building that whale because we knew it was such a huge project. And so much. It was so expensive too. It was such an expensive whale.
But it moved. Like its tail moved, its mouth opened. It was awesome.
And it makes the scenes work because they're interacting with this real dead thing with an exploded belly. It's not just a CG effect. So it was really one of my prouder moments as a producer, actually.
Let me just say, the whole cast gave me so much guff for me complaining about how much I'm covered in blood in the first season. Nobody's making fun of me for that anymore. They all understand what it's like. Ooh, it's not pretty.
Oh yeah. Oh, you guys were picking whale out of your ears and your pants for like days after.
Weeks.
There was just whale everywhere.
Yeah.
I want to hear a little bit more from Karl about how Butcher is dealing with the fact that this guy that he's been chasing for all of season 1, with the intent on taking his life, that he discovers at the end of season 1 that this guy is his wife's son's father, or in the street vernacular, his wife's soup baby daddy. It really does change the dynamic, not just of Butcher's relationship to kind of who he's been all this time, but obviously his relationship to Homelander.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the end of season 2 was a complete game changer for Butcher. It is a real paradigm shift. It changes everything going forward for him. His objective through season 2 is to really find Rebecca and rescue her to get his wife back. And so if season 1 was, Butcher really focused on blind revenge for the perceived death of his wife, season 2, really becomes about getting her and saving her. And, the moral questions that arise from that is, how far is Butcher willing to go? How much is he willing to sacrifice? And it's particularly pertinent coming off season 1, where we see that Butcher would turn his back on the boys if he could inflict some, degree of pain and suffering on Homelander, on the Seven. And, there's a certain evolution for Butcher in season 2 where, he has some tough choices to make. Whether, he will be able to do something to achieve that goal, to get him closer to Becca. Will he, again jeopardize his team? And that was a lot of fun to play. Season 2 really, I think, has some very interesting pair-ups. I think I really enjoyed getting to work with Erin and obviously and Starlight through season 2, which is such an unlikely odd couple pairing. And I think that's one of the things that season 2 does really successfully, is throw people together, unlikely combinations of characters together, and you get to see how they bounce off each other and interact.
There's so much exciting kind of dynamism between characters. You wouldn't imagine them together, but they don't really particularly want to be together, but they're forced together by circumstance or by shared goals. But speaking of motherhood and mother's milk, Antony, you have some of the strangest scenes.
Speaking of motherhood,
about mothers, I'm like, it's my time.
Is it me?
A little Oedipus.
This guy.
Hey, this guy.
I want to show a photo from a scene that happens really early on in season 2, and I want you to explain to everybody what's going on. Antony's in a frail emotional state, and he's going through it.
We've seen through season 1 that really this guy is desperately, painfully lonely and desperate for connection. And of course, a big part of that was the lovely Elizabeth Shue / Stillwell, but she wasn't willing to let Homelander expand in season 1 and, you know, fulfill what he believed he was capable of, his mission, so to speak. So he dealt with his Oedipal complex at the end of season 1, and then I think season 2 has been a lot about trying to find his place. Season 1 was very external, whereas season 2 is very internal. And I guess there's nothing more internal than milk. And so as a way to connect the dots between season 1 and 2 and bring Stillwell back into his world a little bit, he finds traces of Stillwell and reconnects that way. And that is a moment of pure connection between Homelander and Stillwell, season 2.
You're drinking her breast milk.
Exactly. For that.
I'm drinking breast milk.
Yeah.
It's very nutritious, filled with natural antibodies. It's quite good for you. Part of it is that you can see him doing terrible things, but you understand that in a lot of ways he's just deeply bruised, and that's also a component of how much power he has. That he's so powerful, but yet he can't force people to connect with him. He can't force relationships. The one thing he really needs, he can't form.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that, you know, in a lot of ways, and that's the duality of the character, and which is, you know, these guys have really done a great job playing both sides of that. The strongest man on the show is the strongest physical man on the show is the weakest emotionally on the show, in my opinion. And it's fun to bounce in and out of those worlds. But I gotta say, like every time Homelander does something horrible or deranged, it's the best day's work for me. I have such a good time, and I just laugh my ass off. I really do. I just think it's hilariously funny that he turns up, zaps the plane, the controls of the plane, and then may as well get out of here. I think it's hysterical.
I was going to say he's perfectly dissociated, which I think is also a byproduct of, I mean, I'm sure, Eric, you've been thinking a lot about this, about the idea of like ultimate power corrupting. Ultimately, the fact that he's so powerful means he has a very hard time caring about anybody that is not as powerful as he is. So, you know, it's like, I tried it.
Yeah, and there's also this weird parenting thing where it's you know, I can do whatever I want to my kids, I can say whatever I want about my kids, but you can't. So if someone's bullying one of the 7, then you can expect Homelander to sort of bully the bully back. Not that really ever happens, except for the Deep, which is he's just not really worth much. But you know, it's the Deep. He talks to fish. He's got no respect from anyone. So it's difficult to make that argument about that.
Back for you, baby girl.
Well, let's talk about Huey now, because you know the season 1 was so transformative for him, right? He goes from being this very kind of timid, low-key, very interior character to, you know, really blossoming in the company of this team of maniacs. And now Butcher is gone. And so what does that do for Huey and his position in The Boys, and how does that transform his experience and his connection with the other characters?
It's interesting because, you know, Butcher essentially, from Huey's perspective, just betrayed everybody. So now he's just kind of left there, and he feels very alone. He feels terrible about lying to Annie all of season 1. Bad move. And he is just super alone. He has nothing. And then he, at a certain point, he starts realizing, okay, what do I do now? I need to, do I keep this fight going? I kind of have to, because I don't really have anything else, and this is the right thing to do. And he does that by, you know, he sneaks a few conversations with Annie, even though they're not technically supposed to, because he's on the run. It's not something romantic yet, although he's kind of hoping it could be. But something I really found fascinating about what Eric did with Huey this season is that, you know, in season 1, he kind of latches on to a lot of people that tell him what to do and how to navigate his way through this crazy world. And in season 2, he's starting to realize how he can do that on his own. and just kind of he's starting to realize who he is on the inside and what he wants to do, not just in relation to what people like Butcher or even the boys or Starlight want him to do.
Was there a specific moment in the season where you felt like Huey had really made a turn, like the transformational moment where he starts to be a little bit more of a leader? Although I think it was showing up with his retainer at the end of season 1. I mean, I came to save you with my retainer.
If there's one thing that says leadership, it's a good retainer. Great. There's one moment early on where spoilers, Butcher comes back and Huey's not excited about it. And he gives Huey the old classic, we're going to do this thing, the old Kenan and Kel, we're going to do this thing, it's going to be great, you'll love it. And I think the first time I realized Huey's a little bit so different. How did I do, Carl?
You'll love it.
You'll love it. But after that, Huey says, no, I never love it. I never love it. I censored myself. And that was the first point I realized, like, okay, this guy, he's standing up for himself. He's owning himself a little bit more. He's still Huey, he's still going to scream a lot, but he's coming into his own.
So, Erin, a big challenge for Annie during season 1 was how to navigate everything that's going on in the world with the Seven, with the boys, and still hold on to her personal moral compass. I mean, she's someone who believes in the goodness of superheroes and wants to be a good soup. So what does that mean for her life, her arc in season 2? How does that manifest?
What was fun about season 2 is, and what I think people will find satisfying in terms of her trajectory, is that she kind of steps into her own power. She's kind of forced to, and into her strength. And her objective stays the same. It's the same thing as season 1, episode 1, when she says she wants to be the best superhero in the world. Her morals stay totally intact, but she's forced to adapt to the dark world that she's become exposed to. And her means to attain that objective totally change. And that's where some really interesting storylines come in, like collaborating with characters and doing team ups that you would never anticipate, and exploring dynamics between her and Huey, for example, who's broken her heart, who she has residual feelings for, who she totally fell in love with. But the only way that both of them are able to attain their goals is to get over that and work towards their goals together. So they have all of this underlying emotional stuff going on and this tension, and yet there's still chemistry there, and they're able to totally tap into their former chemistry. So it's confusing. And then she's got Butcher, who shot her in the chest, yet she's got to kind of join forces with him. So, her objective stays the same, but she hardens a lot as a result of season 1. And what I found really kind of interesting to explore is a really thick wall goes up with her that is inevitable when you take someone who's really earnest, naive and kind of gullible, and then they have their heart broken by every single person in their life that they love, by all the systems that they've believed in. And so she builds up a wall. It's almost too thick to compensate for it, I think. And so beginning of season 2, that wall is up so thickly that perhaps she has, I don't know, she's still doing the same thing in terms of trying to save the world, but she's a little bit inaccessible. And I think she learns to start to drop the wall so that she balances the line between being informed and not naive, but also finding herself again. So there's a lot going on, basically.
So, Erin, at the end of season 1, obviously Starlight and A-Train had this big boss fight, and Starlight didn't put A-Train down. He had a heart attack, but it was not the best interaction. And now you guys have got to go back to work together, and I think it's going to be a little awkward. So what can we expect in terms of your dynamic during season 2?
I mean, it's not a positive one. Certainly, at least not in the beginning. Basically, there's a mutual figuring out of how to handle each other, and she has to ultimately, blackmail him, which is something she's really uncomfortable with, but she's got no choice but to do. He don't respond too well to it. It's not the most positive relationship.
They're really toxic towards each other, but they're so unpredictable. A-Train has no idea what Starlight's capable of, and Starlight just doesn't know what A-Train knows. So there's a lot of confusion there.
Yeah.
There is a lot of figuring out.
So at the end of season 1, Jessie, A-Train was in terrible shape. He had been in this big boss fight with Starlight. He had a heart attack. And it means something for him personally, obviously, but I think professionally, he's really afraid of losing his position in the 7. So what is going on with him at the beginning of season 2, and where does he stand in relation to the 7?
Physically, A-Train is in bad shape. He's abused Compound V, and it's taking some very long-term effects on his body. And him being an athlete, that's very much in the forefront of the issues that he has to deal with. But A-Train has so many things that he's been literally running from for so long. Like, now he's in the place where he has to just stop, turn, and face these things, and it's tearing him apart. He's fueled by this hate and this rage, and a lot of it's self-inflicted, even though he's kind of pinning it on other people. But it's, everywhere he looks, he just feels betrayed or hated or something. Like he's attaching negative emotions to every aspect of his life, and now he has to kind of turn around and deal with these things all at one time, and it's a lot for him to do. The end of season 1 was a lot of confusion for him, a lot of like misplaced anger. It's a lot, it's a lot for anybody to have to deal with, superpowers or not. And it's unfortunate that he takes it out on other people the way that he does. But for him, he just doesn't feel like there's any other way. He wants something that he feels like is his safe haven. He doesn't know that it's, leading to his own destruction, but he's doing whatever he feels like he needs to do to keep the life that he is so proud of, so happy to be in. And he's willing to do anything to keep it. He's willing to die for it. He's willing to kill for it. And we see that time and time again in season 1. He's almost, it's a pretty sad case, but he's kind of ruthless in a sense, where his decisions are always the worst ones, because what he's trying to get, he just doesn't care about what he loses in the process.
What I love about the show is how sympathetic all these characters are, even when they're doing really terrible things. And A-Train is really in this position of insecurity, right? He from the beginning, he's worried about the security of his job, and he's willing to do anything to stay on top. And I think that's really interesting, because we always see superheroes as just kind of like perfectly formed, and they've got powers and they do things the right way. But this is a guy who feels his security slipping away through the entire season, season 1.
Yeah, that's something that I like a lot about the show that's unique, that I haven't seen very often. Is like, in a world with superheroes, the ones that you know and love are not the only ones that exist. So for A-Train, having a power that, what we'll learn is like, there's quite a few people who have the same ability as him. They might not be quite as good as he is, but that is always in the back of his mind. Is like, I'm not the only super speedster in the world. What's important to him is that he's always on top, though. He has to be the best. He has to be the fastest, because if he's not, everything crumbles from there. So he's willing to do whatever it takes to keep that top spot. And it means a lot to him. And we'll learn a little bit more about that in season 2, of like why it means so much, and, the things that he's afraid of happening. A lot of what fuels him is fear, to be honest with you. When I broke it down, as I was reading these scripts and talking with Eric and the various directors that we had, and kind of just thinking about it on my own, he's afraid of a lot of things that could happen. He's like afraid of his own nightmares. They haunt him, and they drive him to doing some really crazy stuff. and despite the fact that he knows better, he just can't control himself. He's like, what do you want me to do?
Right. When you're always terrified, then everybody becomes a threat, right? And there's a threat around every corner for him. And in season 1, Huey really was his main target. But in season 2, he shifts his attention to somebody else, because he really has a lot of fear about it.
I don't know if we can say like where it goes. I don't want to give away too much. But yeah, you're right. You're right. He is that guy who has a problem, and instead of dealing with the problem the way that it should be dealt with, he kind of takes it and he aims it at someone. And in season 1, he aimed it at Huey. And a lot of times people, when I talk about this character, they ask me like, did A-Train really believe that, Huey killed his girlfriend? And it's like, no, he doesn't believe that Huey killed his girlfriend. He just needs someone to blame for his girlfriend being dead. And God forbid he blames himself. So he looks at Huey and he's like, you did this, and you're going to pay for it. Hey, Huey, man, good to see you.
Hey, man.
But that's his way of like dealing, is deflecting. And it's really unhealthy, but he just doesn't know a better way.
Right. He has, I think, for someone who's been, abusing Compound V for all that time, you just start to kind of slowly make compromises. And rather than take responsibility for your own behavior, you blame it on other people, which is a pretty typical mindset when someone is struggling with addiction.
He's so dependent on it. Yeah, exactly. He's so dependent on it. The addiction kind of takes over whatever clear mindset he would have had. And it blurs his vision to the point where the only thing that makes sense to him is keep running, keep going, don't look back, and, don't deal. Just don't deal. Right. And everything has been piling up. And then now in season 2 with this heart attack, he kind of, the physical aspect got snatched from him. And now he has to deal with the mental and the emotional state that he's in.
All right. So I want to talk about Mother's Milk. I wonder how your character is going to navigate this in season 2. He's incredibly loyal to the boys. And with Butcher out of the way, he becomes kind of the anchor in a lot of ways and keeps everybody in line. But he also has his own goals, which may be at odds, I think, going forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was interesting kind of working through with Eric. Why is Mother's Milk in The Boy? If you really look at Mother's Milk as we find him in season 1, he's got his family. He's got a daughter who he cares very much about. He's got a wife that he is tremendously subservient to. He wants to make her happy. He cooks her tilapia for her. And, why would he risk all of that to join this group of, essentially misfits? And what I loved is that, Garth had taken this character and molded him in theory, after the crack babies, of the 80s, where he was physically infected, with an addiction to V because of his families, working in factories and they ingested it and breathed it in, but here in our version of the boys, in our ecosystem, that's not the case. So what is he infected with? And Eric kind of, beautifully created this infection with being a fighter of freedom. You know what I'm saying? That's what he's infected with is risking what he has in the pursuit of justice. And, even if it doesn't necessarily mean justice for him, but if it's justice for his daughter, who's the future, then it's worth the fight. And so I love that take on this character. There was a tremendous amount of emotional intelligence that I had to bring to this character, because what he had to be within this group was the voice of morality, to keep us from going so far over the edge where we might become as dark as the Supes, so that we don't forget why we're here and what we're fighting for. So that's kind of the line that I try to always measure is when we have a scene together as a group and we're planning what we're going to do is, morally speaking, what would Mother's Milk do? And try to kind of steer the group in that direction.
Mother's Milk is like the physical manifestation of the moral soldier, of the guy who will go into a fight because it's the right thing to do. Almost none of the other characters on the show really have that same kind of internal moral compass. They're motivated by their own personal desires. But Mother's Milk is like, no, I'm loyal and I've got to do the right thing because that's just who I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when Butcher comes to him and says, we can put an explosive device up the anus of a superhero and blow that superhero up, Mother's Milk's like, that is what I need to do with my life.
Right thing.
Waiting for it.
It did intrigue him. I'm not gonna lie. It did intrigue him. I think that there is a tremendous amount of, hold on a second, guys. Let's pull back here. Let's think about what we're gonna do. Is this really the way? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If we just went for ours with no type of pushback within our own group, then the show would be over in 2 episodes. So you need somebody to kind of hold us back. Wait a minute, hold on a minute. Have you thought about this? And you need somebody that's going to be the conscience of the group. You got your little bad devil and the good angel on the shoulder. I kind of see Mother's Milk as the good angel telling everybody, whoa, let's not jump off the cliff yet. Let's try this approach.
Now, guys, out there in virtual Comic-Con land, we have a very special question from a very special guest that sent in a video message just for Chace Crawford. So let's play that clip now, and then we can answer.
This is gonna be good. I already know.
Ooh.
Oh.
What's that, baby girl? Oh, yeah. Season 2 is way better, isn't it? Yeah. I think so, too.
He's so cute.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
I miss you, too.
I miss you, too.
Yeah.
Twerking.
I'll see you down in the
Who's
keys.
twerking for you, Chace?
Oh my God, I know. She was making it clap.
I'll join her down the Intracoastal Waterway, down to the Florida Keys. Bring the lobster. Love you.
That was a very attractive dolphin, and very, very verbal she was as well.
Very vocal.
Seriously, I think one of the most interesting and complex personal journeys on the show has actually been the Deeps. I mean, he's been the one who's really hit a true rock bottom. He's exiled from the Seven. He's alone in Sandusky, Ohio. He does what every teenager does when they've had a terrible emotional experience. He shaves his head. He's really going through it. I want to hear a little bit more about what your journey's like in this season. I know, but without giving any spoilers, you again have a really transformational experience in season 2 as well. Your character is really not just trying to find his way back into the Seven, but figure out who he is, I think, on some level.
Yeah, I know you said it. I mean, my hair's back. That's the important thing. It's
exactly.
here.
That's the most important thing.
No, I mean, the first season, even the first couple episodes, I was with other actors, other characters, and but it's been very interesting being quite literally on my own journey, and I think being in Ohio was tough for him, a little bit like quarantine. He's started out making margaritas, and then he was drinking from the bottle, and then he was in a very, very, very dark place. And I think with someone like the Deep, I mean, he's not very self-aware. And I think he finally was confronted with his own inner turmoil and trying to figure out who he is. And he was very ripe for getting, pulled into a certain kind of spiritual journey. And he goes on a few different quests to find love and to find connection in that way. And and there's some humor interlaid in there. We see on the Whale, and it's interesting. I think he still wants to be back in the Seven, and it was fun.
To me, he represents a very specific kind of archetypal or stereotypical idea of a Hollywood character, a guy who doesn't really know who he is outside of the public gaze, right? So when he is kind of relegated to obscurity, he really falls apart because his sense of himself is completely tied up in his position in the Seven.
You're exactly right. No, being in somewhere like New York and being famous, you can get really, he was totally wrapped up in that identity. And when that rug is pulled out from you right away, and you're stuck in Sandusky, Ohio, with just a water park. you really are confronted with not knowing who you are. Someone joins him, from his past, and it's a very interesting storyline he goes on.
Yeah, he has a triumphant return, and it's quickly deflated by a speeding boat. But his journey is really entertaining. I think people are really going to love it. Karen, your character is a woman of few words. Actually, absolutely no words whatsoever.
No words. We can say it.
No words at all. But she makes herself perfectly understood. How has that been for you as an actor? Has it been challenging or has it been freeing? Because I know when I show up and I have no lines, I'm like, it's a no line day. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Has it been really freeing for you?
I mean, for sure. I know that some of the castmates, I think Laz said something one time. He was like, I would love to not have any lines. And it's true, it's nice not having to learn that, but it's definitely a challenge as an actor because I've never done a role like this before. And even in season 2, we kind of dive into more of her psyche and her emotional state, more so than her physical side. So definitely a challenge, but fulfilling in the end. Yeah.
It's super physical also. I mean, what that means is not just that you're doing a lot of incredible emotional work with your face, but you're doing extraordinary physical work with your body. It's super stunty. Is there anything special that you're coming into that, like approaching those days differently than you would normally approach acting day? Because it's pretty punishing. I mean, there's some pretty big, I don't think it's spoily to say there's some pretty big boss fights in this thing.
Yeah. I mean, for the physical bits, I work with a fantastic trainer named David in Toronto, and Teague Fong, our stunt coordinator, is just amazing with all the choreography. He helps us learn all of the bits ahead of time so that we're comfortable on the day to perform them. And yeah, I think it's a balance of training your fitness to build the muscle, and then learning the choreography appropriately so that you feel like it's second nature. It's already in your skin by the time the cameras are rolling. This season, we got to do a stunt. We called it the Black Widow stunt. And we got it on camera with me doing it. So I'm excited for everyone to see that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, the action this season is explosive. It's really, really cool for everybody who's watching. It's spectacular. We get to learn a lot more about Kimiko's past. There's some big reveals about where she came from and how she got to be the person that she is. And we can't say anything more, but I think it was really exciting to go on that journey with your character and really get to understand who she is, why she is, potentially why she doesn't speak, which I think, I think is going to be really exciting for people.
Her relationship with her history that we find out in season 2 also alters the relationship that she has with Frenchie a little bit. And it's interesting to see different sides of her come out, not so much the feral animalistic side, but her growing into her own womanhood and individuality, I guess. Yeah.
So much of Frenchie's time in season 1 was about trying to save Kimiko, trying to bring Kimiko out of her shell, trying to protect her. And what we will see is that maybe Kimiko doesn't need any protecting at all. We get to spend a lot of time with Frenchie and learn a lot more about himself. Tell us what you can about how we expand Frenchie in season 2, how you got to grow him as a character.
In season 2, the fans, the audience do get a chance to peek, through the window, the door, to all kind of different characters in season 2, including Frenchie, which you're gonna get a little sneak peek of origin story. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
and I mean those things to me as a kid, like being a comic book fan, or even just being a kid, or just being me. I love this stuff so much. Like the chance to get to know a character. You're gonna get to know how Frenchie got into the boys, like other characters did, and gonna even get to know his real name, which is really interesting. And it was exciting to me as an actor, and I can't wait fans to see that.
Yeah, he goes on a real ride this season. He's been attached to Kumiko, like really he's been by her side this entire time. And because of her transformation, because of her growth, they have to separate a little bit and they have to figure out who they are on their own. And that's really difficult, I think, for Frenchie, because he's made her his mission for so much of this.
Exactly,
season.
You're right on point. That's right. All season one, Frenchie did was kind of hang on to what he saw as the most beautiful thing he could, take care of, which was the female. And in season two, he can't take. I mean, she can't take it anymore. She got to spread her wings and start talking. Really, guys, not really. But and that puts Frenchie a really, really. First of all, lonely spot, and second of all, he needs to deal with his traumas, and there's a lot of them. And that's what I love about this season so much. Again, the fact that, the stories are so well taken care of. I was just amazed by everyone's performances in this season and the way we just took it, I think, much deeper and further away. It was amazing.
It was wonderful to watch that transformation for both of your characters, because I just felt like there was so much real emotion in that relationship and so much injury for both characters, and you really care about them. And then things explode, which is the best combination in a show. A little bit of tears, then something explodes. Perfect television.
No tear stick, all real tears.
Yes.
Real tears in the
all
boys.
Real tears. Awesome. We have a new character on the show this season, Stormfront. And right away, I think we're going to find out that Stormfront is a little bit more, she's got a little bit more going on than we see at first blush. She is absolutely a match for Homelander. So, and he's spinning apart, and then he meets somebody who's at least as intense and as kind of out of her tree as he is. What when you first read this role, did you know exactly what the backstory was going to be for your character when you came on board?
Yeah, I basically I was given some sides that show a little bit of sort of her social media savvy, and maybe a little of what's going on underneath. And then Eric and I chatted about what was going to happen. So I didn't necessarily know from beginning to end, but I definitely knew who she was. And I was really excited to play her, mainly because I thought there was no chance that they would let me play her. When I first got the sides and I realized what it was, because there was sort of a little disclaimer that came with the role, I think I said to my agent, I even have a text from the waiting room being like, there's no way this is happening, but I'm going to have so much fun in this audition. And so then he let me do it, which is exactly what I look for in a role, is something that I don't
Is somebody
think
giving it to you?
Yes, basically a job.
Me too.
Me too.
I think that's what we all want in a role, is getting it.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to get paid. But I also, I look for things that I don't think that I'm necessarily good at, because I think that's the fun part about being an actor, is trying to do new stuff. And sometimes you run into people who are like, no, I can see the thing in you that's excited about this and that knows this, even if you're not necessarily the typical fit for what you would think of this role, for many reasons, some of which are obvious, like I do Zumba as a workout. I am not a kick-ass superhero. And then for some reasons that will sort of be examined or will be revealed later in the season.
Well, you are killer in this role, and I think it doesn't spoil the show to say right away that when you come in, you're a different kind of female character than we've seen in the Seven. And one of the things I think that the show does beautifully, and Eric, is that you make people so complex and so likable, and then you kind of exploit all of our loyalties, and without giving that up. I mean, when Stormfront comes in, she feels like this breath of fresh air. She's a badass. She takes no prisoners. She's not going to take anybody's guff. And so you really love this character off the bat. And then hilarity ensues. But I don't want to blow this up. I mean, this Stormfront storyline is just, it's extraordinary, and it's very prescient for where we are right now in our culture. And that's not even a question. I guess I want to know what that felt like to play her, because, you know, you have to do and say some pretty unusual and extraordinary things. But the storyline itself, I think, really serves, you know, where we are, like in the real world. It really serves that up on a platter for the viewers.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is so great about The Boys, and I got to also see episodes before I even auditioned, so I sort of came in as a fan. And what I love about it is that it's so topical, and it takes, what I love about all sci-fi and comic books and fantasy is that it allows us to look at current issues without, with some sort of distance that allows us to see them clearer. Because when we talk about current events, often people take things very personally. And when you are watching something that is a fantasy or in a heightened world, you end up being able to sort of listen better and learn new things in different ways because they're out of your personal context. So I was really excited about that. That's not to say that there weren't really hard moments of being a human being and playing a role, someone who I ultimately violently disagree with. But I also, you know, my job as an actor, not to get, but my job as an actor is to find the humanity and go to like the ugly, gross parts of ourselves. And it's Eric's job to decide what happens to that character. And I think that he has done a beautiful job of both allowing her humanity and hopefully punishing her.
That feels right. Eric, I want to circle back to you just on the global themes of the show. It's so fun. Obviously, it's such a wild ride, but it has these really big ideas, you know, buried at the core that make the show the kind of thing that you can watch a few times and each time get something different from what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, we just really try to be very character forward in the show. I mean, I really think that's the compass of getting this tone right, of just when you look at these superheroes, explore the most stringent, try to apply the most stringent reality to how that character would really behave if they had those powers. Because I think the thesis of the show is, you know, superheroes with power are inherently people. And so they are prone to the types of challenges and potential corruption that happens when you get so much power and access. And, you know, the metaphor that, you know, when we started with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg and I, you know, we started with the metaphor of celebrities, of how so many get, you know, so much access and suddenly can do whatever they want. And I think one of the theses of the show is power doesn't actually corrupt you. It just reveals the thing that you've secretly always been. And, you know, and so we get an opportunity with these heroes to, obviously it's horrible behavior. It's just terrible. They're terrible. So many of them are just
They're terrible people.
Truly terrible people. But they're
the funny kind of terrible, yeah.
Yeah. But with that being said, I think, you know, and what these actors, the humanity they bring to the part is amazing. And I think in partnership with them, you know, not only do I hate writing just straight villains, like I'm kind of incapable of it. Like I don't understand it. I'm always like, well, why did they act that way? And what made them the way they are, and what would force someone to make such a horrible choice. And certainly that's what I bring to the scripts, but then these guys carry it all the way by bringing all this, you know, complicated, messy humanity to the roles. And so we end up with, you know, I don't want you to agree with what these superheroes do, but I want you to understand why they're doing it.
Right.
And I think that helps make the show a little more complicated.
So I said earlier that I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm very excited about this next announcement. Here to tell you something that's going to be coming up for you and all of us fans of The Boys are executive producers Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
Hi.
Hello.
It's Seth and Evan in the best way possible, not in person, on a screen. Thanks for having us.
Still side by side.
Exactly. We're one room apart from one another. This is a practical wall. Yeah, exactly. But yes, thank you so much for watching The Boys.
Thank you so much to all our fans for watching the show. It's the greatest. We're just so pumped about it. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, and because this show has fans and it is watched by people like you, they have decided to renew it yet again for a third season. So if you like The Boys, you got more of it. Thank God.
We never know if things we make are going to keep moving on forward or just get shut down. This one's not shut down yet.
No, exactly. When can we film season 3? Anyone's guess. Hope sometime this decade. But
we don't know where, we don't know when, but we're going to do it.
Exactly. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of superheroes in what are essentially hermetically sealed outfits that do not allow any of their breath to interact with anyone else's breath. It's just a wardrobe choice. Has nothing to do with the current climate. But thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we hope you enjoy the third season as much as you are about to enjoy the second season.
And I'm really looking forward to meeting the new members of the 7, Biohazard and Social Distancing. That's going to be dope.
Exactly.
Super excited for those guys. The cough. Yeah, and cover your hand, cover your mouth.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
We appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations, guys. That's amazing. So exciting. It's an early pickup. I mean, it's always nice to be able to announce at Comic-Con that you're coming back for another season. And so we want to thank everybody out there in Hall H for all of their support.
Thank you.
Now, since we're making announcements, I've got one more piece of really exciting news. There is going to be a brand new after show for The Boys where we're going to unpack each week's episode. We're going to dig into the affecting themes and big ideas that underpin this world and offer exclusive works at exactly how the sausage gets made. The show is called Prime Rewind Inside The Boys, and it will be hosted by yours truly, Aisha Tyler. And it right after the show, and new episodes are going to post each week along with the series. And I'm really excited about that. As I said at the beginning, I love the show. I'm a big fan, and it's going to be so much fun to get to nerd out with you guys every week. And I just want to say that it was great to hang with you guys last year when we were getting ready for season 1 to come out. I'm a big fan. I'm thrilled to be here with you again. I'm looking forward to doing this back after season 3. In San Diego, hopefully. See Me Free and back in effect. Because it's a great show, and it's not just entertaining, but I think it's one of the most thoughtful superhero shows out there. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this. I want to thank everybody who's watching out there around the world for joining. The new season of The Boys drops September 4th with the first 3 episodes, and then we'll be back each week for a new episode through the October 9th finale. And every week, Prime Rewind Inside The Boys is going to drop so that you can hear and talk and discuss with all of us the themes, the big ideas, and the crazy moments that occur in season 2. I've seen the entire season. It is a doozy, and in the immortal words of Kripke, the pooper hits the fan. So everybody check out the new season of The Boys, and we'll see you this fall. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Right.
Look at this. This is what it's like working on a studio.